The movie opens in a thick forest where a boy in a yellow jacket is running frantically. He looks scared, as if he's running for his life. Exhausted, he collapses to the ground, grabs at dry leaves, and beats the earth with his hands. His face clearly shows he's troubled, something is wrong. Meanwhile, a red bus slowly moves through the forest. Inside are several teenagers. The bus continues on without stopping. One of the teens, Nolan, is watching Bess. She's focused on her drawing and doesn't notice Nolan looking at her. Suddenly, the radio announces a lunar eclipse, saying that the bond between humans and the moon is always strong. Realizing the radio's message is important, the driver, Joseph, turns up the volume and asks the teens if they're paying attention. Carl, a large teen, replies that he already saw it on YouTube. Queenie, sitting beside him, adds that she watched it with her dad. Carl notices Queenie using her tablet while wearing glasses, and teases her, saying he has welder's glasses he can lend her. Queenie calmly replies that his glasses are for solar, not lunar, and explains they're not suitable due to double refraction. Joseph silently listens, amused by their exchange. Carl looks puzzled by Queenie's explanation. When she realizes he's mocking her, she playfully hits him with her hand. The road ahead takes the bus deeper into a dense forest path. In the back seat, Reggie sits alone and appears irritated. He throws a Coca-Cola can at Nolan and makes a rude gesture. Nolan replies with a similar insulting gesture. Meanwhile, the radio encourages listeners to view the eclipse by lifting their heads to the sky, reminding them that if they miss it, they'll have to wait another 20 years. Bess continues drawing, fully focused on herself. Joseph asks her if she plans to watch the eclipse. Bess replies that she's not sure yet. Carl, sitting on the other side, says someone definitely won't miss it, implying her. Queenie stands up from her seat and moves to the front seat, while Carl shifts his attention to his phone. After a while, Reggie begins to feel unwell and tells Joseph to drive more slowly because he's getting sick. Joseph smiles and tells him that their journey is still a long one. Interrupting them, Carl says he's going to ask everyone a riddle. As soon as he starts, Queenie answers right away. Reggie mocks Carl because Queenie answered so quickly. Joseph notices what's going on and decides to join the fun. He's told to come up with a riddle that they can't answer or look up online. Joseph accepts and asks a long, tricky question. Queenie gets confused, and no one is able to answer it. After that, they continue their journey. The trip is long and silent, there are no other cars or people around. As they go on, they find the road blocked by a fallen tree. Carl suggests turning back, but Joseph refuses. Instead, he reverses the bus a little and takes a shortcut to keep going. The new road looks scarier and is covered in mist. The teens' faces show that they are a bit nervous. Soon, another obstacle appears. A dead deer lies in the middle of the road. Joseph stops the bus. Before stepping outside, he firmly tells the teens to stay inside. They obey without saying anything. Carl and the others look surprised. Joseph drags the deer to the side of the forest. He looks tired from the effort, but just before he returns to the bus, someone points a gun at him. Back inside, the teens are relaxed. Carl starts telling a story about how he once rode a pig and even shows them how the pig reacted. At that moment, Joseph returns, but he is not alone. A man named Pedro, clearly a robber, is with him and has a gun pointed at Joseph. The teens panic once they see the weapon. Joseph tells them to stay calm and assures them that Pedro won't hurt anyone. Pedro then orders them to sit down and tells Joseph to keep driving. He warns the teens to be quiet, saying he's the only one allowed to talk. Then he tells Queenie to change her seat. In a flashback, Carl tells his father about a situation he handled, explaining how he fought off a group of 7 men to help a girl. While eating a sandwich, he accidentally spills ketchup on his father's tablet screen and quickly apologizes. As his father cleans the screen, Carl notices a man on the news, Pedro, the same man from earlier, who has escaped from prison. His father says that Pedro has been on the run for a long time and adds that he's known for eating tongues and seems to target teenagers. Carl becomes frightened but pretends not to be. The journey continues, but now Pedro has complete control over Joseph and the teenagers. Night falls. Pedro tells everyone to listen closely and orders them to throw their phones out the window. Without hesitation, the teenagers all toss their phones. However, Reggie refuses and insults Pedro. Pedro walks over to Reggie's seat, shows him his gun, and reminds him that it's real, warning that death will be delicious. Meanwhile, Carl quietly remembers that Pedro is the same tongue eater from the news. Reggie gives in and hands his phone to Pedro. Pedro then returns to the front seat and looks at Queenie, saying the night is long and the seas are rough. Queenie looks terrified and doesn't say a single word. The road is dark and eerie. The teenagers remain silent, communicating only through gestures. Out of nowhere, Pedro asks Nolan for his name. Then Pedro says he used to love comic books as a kid and that the first thing he ever stole was a pack of smokes and comic books. Afterward, they arrived at a cave road, but at this time, the road had light. While they were driving, the bus unexpectedly stopped and was unable to continue. Pedro became aggressive and asked Joseph what the problem was. Joseph told him that he didn't know, and when he tried to start the engine again, the engine failed to start. Without any further command, Pedro grabbed Queenie and pointed a gun at her head, warning Joseph to fix the bus or he would execute Queenie without hesitation. Joseph tried to calm him down, but Pedro ordered him to get out and check the bus. Without hesitating, Joseph stepped out to fix it. Pedro took Queenie with him, still pointing the gun at her head. Carl told his friends that they were all going to die. The teenagers stood and walked toward the side windows to observe what was happening. Bess suggested the idea of disarming Pedro, but Carl immediately rejected the idea and said that the man was a psycho who would shoot without thinking twice. Reggie agreed with Carl and told them that they should wait for the right moment before taking any action that could risk their lives. Joseph is trying to fix the bus. After checking the motor, he tells Pedro that the problem might be with the engine. Unexpectedly, the road lights go out, which scares everyone. Joseph notices something nearby. Pedro commands him to check it out and points a gun at him. Without hesitation, Joseph agrees and walks toward the front. The teenagers and Pedro are both scared and curious, their full attention on Joseph. When Joseph shines his flashlight ahead, he sees something wearing a black scarf, though its face isn't visible. Before he can react, the terrifying figure grabs Joseph and suffocates him. The teenagers scream when they see the creature grab Joseph. Pedro tries to calm them by yelling. Reggie insults him, and Pedro gives him a final warning to sit down. Then Pedro realizes the bus key is missing and yells in frustration. He walks over to Carl and tells him to bring the key, but Nolan steps forward and offers to go instead. Before he can leave, Bess steps in front and says she'll do it. Bess slowly walks toward Joseph. She looks terrified and tense. Carefully, she pulls the key from Joseph's pocket. Joseph is dead, with a wound on his neck. His neck has been bitten by the creature. Suddenly, Bess hears a sound from nearby. She quickly shines her flashlight in that direction. As the light hits, she sees the monster and immediately runs back to the bus. When they ask Bess about Joseph, she silently gestures that he didn't make it. She begins explaining what happened, though she admits she isn't sure whether the thing she saw was an animal or some other kind of creature. Her voice trembles with uncertainty. Pedro, ignoring her fear, forcefully commands Reggie to drive. Reggie tries again and again to start the engine, but it refuses to turn over. Pedro grows more impatient and threatens to shoot him in the head if he doesn't get it moving. Before he can act, Nolan suddenly pushes Pedro aside. Reggie quickly seizes the moment, grabs the gun, and points it at Pedro. But Pedro quickly gets back on his feet and dares him to pull the trigger. Just before anything can happen, the creature appears, now standing on top of the bus. Pedro snatches the gun back from Reggie and storms outside to face it. He starts singing, clearly trying to attract the creature's attention, pretending to be brave as he searches around the side of the bus. His laugh is forced and nervous. He's terrified inside. The teenagers flinch when they hear a loud gunshot. Pedro is no longer in sight. As they argue about what to do, the monster slams Pedro's body against the window. His head is bleeding and badly injured. The teenagers scream in panic, unable to process what's happening, and just as suddenly, the monster vanishes. Reggie attempts to start the engine again. Nolan urges him to stop making noise. Reggie, scared and confused, insists they need a loud sound to call for help. No one comes. Frustrated, he slumps back into his seat. Meanwhile, Bess appears unusually calm. She tells the others they need to make a deal with themselves. Nolan agrees, saying they can survive if they work together. Reggie, though, seems completely hopeless. Then, unexpectedly, the radio crackles to life, cutting into the tense silence. Meanwhile, Reggie falls into a hallucination. In his mind, he sees himself and his friends trapped in a blurry, flickering room. Everything is covered in blood, and standing among them is the monster, silent, terrifying, and still. The scene is surreal and nightmarish. Then, suddenly, Nolan shakes him awake, snapping him out of it. At that exact moment, the teenagers hear something strange from outside the bus. There's an eerie sound, something moving, dragging, breathing. Then, unexpectedly, the monster begins trying to open the bus door. Its nails are long, and its fingers unnaturally stretched, more like claws than hands, making it easy for the creature to grip and twist the handle. The teenagers scream in panic as the door creaks open. The monster starts to climb inside, ready to strike. Just before it can attack, Nolan reacts fast. He points the flashlight directly into the creature's eyes. The beam blinds it, and the monster recoils, stumbling backward in confusion and pain. Wasting no time, the teenagers take advantage of the moment. One by one, they scramble out of the bus, running as fast as they can toward a nearby building. Their only thought is survival, getting somewhere safe, anywhere away from that thing. Their footsteps echo in the night as they disappear into the dark, desperate to stay alive. The floor is also dark, and the only source of light is the flashlight they brought with them. None of them have any idea where they are. After walking for a while, they find a room and quietly step inside. They decide to stay there for the time being. Nolan turns to Carl and tells him to shut the door behind them. Then, they light a candle to ease the darkness and give themselves some sense of calm. Nolan and Bess notice a map on the wall. Looking at it closely, Nolan studies the layout and guesses that the building might be an old military fort, possibly abandoned for years. Its heavy walls and narrow hallways seem to confirm his theory. Meanwhile, Queenie suggests they try to find a control room. Maybe they can turn on a generator and bring back the power. Reggie, trying to lighten the mood, jokes that if they actually find working tools in this place, he'll take everyone out for dinner. Carl laughs and replies that Queenie's instincts are never wrong. As Carl mentions that Joseph would have found a way out of this mess, the mood shifts. The teens fall silent, the weight of Joseph's absence suddenly hitting them again. Reggie quietly takes out a small photo of himself and his father. He tells them Joseph and his dad knew each other well and used to play together under stormy skies. He passes the photo around. Queenie gently asks when he last saw his father. Reggie answers, it has been 2 years. His friends say nothing, but in that silence, they feel the heaviness of what he carries. Then, they all gather around the map. The layout is large and complicated, filled with unfamiliar rooms and confusing hallways. Nolan suggests they try to reach the control room. Reggie agrees without much hesitation, but Carl, predictably nervous, refuses and shakes his head. Bess, calm and confident, says she will go with Nolan. Reggie teases them not to have too much fun and even makes a silly gesture, which gets a laugh out of Queenie and Carl. After that, Bess and Nolan begin making their way through the building. At one point, Bess screams when she sees a rat dart across the floor. Nolan laughs lightly and tells her they're almost at the control room. As they walk, he compliments her artwork, saying he noticed her sketches back on the bus. He adds that his mother paints too, and his favorite painting, a landscape, hangs above his bed at home. Back in the room, Carl entertains himself by pretending to play a drum, tapping on surfaces and making up rhythms. Reggie complains that he's hungry. Coincidentally, Carl admits he is hungry too and starts drumming while naming food like a chef in a kitchen. Reggie tells him to shut up, but Carl keeps going. Reggie walks over and gets in his face, but Carl continues with the same silly energy. Finally, Queenie shouts at them both, annoyed, and says she needs to pee, loud enough to make them pause. Afterward, Nolan and Bess arrive in another room. There, they discover a large light device placed against the wall. Nolan quickly remembers that the creature seems to hate light and tells Bess that it might help protect them. As Bess looks around, her eyes fall on something disturbing, a human skull lying at the bottom of the stairs. The sight chills her. Meanwhile, Reggie and Queenie step out of the room they were in. Queenie tells Reggie to turn around and not look. He grumbles but eventually obeys, reluctantly turning his back. She then tells him to step aside, which he does, mumbling for her to hurry up. As she walks away, Reggie nervously jokes that she's kinda cute, but she doesn't say anything. When the silence drags on, he senses something is off. He turns around to check, but Queenie is gone. Panic hits him. He runs back, calling for her, and rushes to Carl to tell him what happened. Both of them set out together, shouting Queenie's name. At first, there's no response. Then, faintly, they hear her voice. Following the sound, they find her, injured, weak, with the monster biting into her neck. Blood stains her clothes. Without thinking, Reggie lights a torch to fend off the creature. Carl seizes the moment, grabs Queenie, and carries her to safety. Reggie steps forward, holding the firelight between himself and the monster. But in the chaos, the torch slips from his hand, falls to the ground, and goes out. Queenie and Carl rush back to help Reggie. This time, Carl doesn't look as scared as before, something in him has changed. On the other side, the monster is attacking Reggie, its claws tearing into him. Reggie's face is bloodied, his voice filled with pain as he screams for help. The creature looks ready to finish him. Just before the final blow, Nolan and Bess arrive at the control room. They quickly find the switch and turn on the building's main lights. The moment the lights blaze through the dark, the monster reacts violently, hissing, stumbling back, and then vanishing into the shadows. It flees quickly, escaping into the darkness beyond. In the control room, Nolan and Bess begin looking around. They find old magazines, papers, and dusty folders. Among them, Nolan spots a strange book and decides to pack it. Inside are disturbing sketches of the monster, detailed, violent, and photos of 2 teenagers. One page includes a handwritten note, though its message is unclear. Not knowing what just happened to their friends, Nolan and Bess decide to return to the room where they left them. They walk cautiously through the dim hallways, completely unaware of the danger their friends faced only moments ago. As they round a corner, they freeze, shadows are moving toward them. Their hearts race, bracing for the worst. But then, relief washes over them when they realize it's their friends. Queenie, Carl, and Reggie step into view, battered but alive. For a brief moment, they feel hope again. Carl explains what happened while they were gone. Bess notices Queenie's wound and gently checks it, then reassures her that she'll be alright. Reggie urges them to move quickly and not waste time. However, Bess and Nolan guide the group into another room where they found the human skull earlier. Carl follows but looks uneasy. He's clearly overwhelmed and uninterested in anything to do with bones or death. Meanwhile, Nolan opens the notebook he took from the control room and begins reading aloud. The notes describe how the monster killed a teenage girl named Isabel, 40 years ago, in the very same place. The entry explains that Isabel and her brother went out for an adventure walk. At first, everything seemed normal. They were just exploring, laughing, and enjoying the day. But when Isabel entered the cave and crossed a narrow passage, she suddenly froze, paralyzed by something she saw. Her heartbeat became visible on her chest, as if her fear had taken over completely. Her brother, Giulio, saw the monster and panicked. Without thinking, he turned and ran to save himself. The journal says Giulio made it out, breathless and terrified, and later ended up in the backseat of his father's car, shaking and in shock. The rest of Isabel's fate is left unwritten, but the fear remains, passed through ink, through time, into the hands of those now caught in the same nightmare. A year later, Isabel's brother, Giulio, returns to the cave where his sister vanished. He is armed with various tools, clearly prepared for a confrontation. Driven by loss and vengeance, he makes a vow to find the killer of his sister and end the monster once and for all. In his words, destroying the creature will mark his own beginning. The document found earlier in the control room turns out to be his, filled with his notes, sketches, and plans. He even crafted custom tools to hunt the monster. Back in the control room, the teenagers reflect on Giulio's story. They feel deeply saddened by his pain and admire his determination to uncover the truth. Queenie quietly states that the monster lives in darkness and fears light. Carl agrees and adds that it feeds on blood like a parasite, a creature of instinct and hunger. The group then makes a decision: they'll finish what Giulio started. They all agree. They will end the monster, and in doing so, begin again. Studying the documents, they form a plan. They repair the radio to lure the monster and deliberately turn off the lights to draw it in. Carl is nervous, but Nolan tells him to stay calm. As the radio plays, the monster arrives. But things go wrong. Bess struggles to restart the generator, and Reggie fails to activate the powerful light device. The plan begins to unravel. The monster moves toward Reggie but suddenly turns away, sensing someone else nearby. It wants Queenie, it has already bitten her. Thinking fast, Bess calls to the monster and moves close to Queenie to protect her. The creature nears the room where they're hiding. Just as it tries to enter, the other teenagers create a diversion. Nolan activates the big light, and Carl pushes the monster with all his strength. Bess and Queenie seize the moment to escape. They sprint toward the cave's entrance and stop only when they reach the light pouring through the safe, because the monster won't cross into the brightness. Then, from inside, Nolan, Reggie, and Carl emerge. Together, they light a cloth torch and throw it at the monster, setting it ablaze. At last, the teens watch the creature burn. It's over, the monster is gone, and a new chapter begins. Relief and joy fill the air. Later, Nolan finally answers the riddle Joseph once asked him. The answer is courage. With the horror behind them, the teenagers return to their normal lives. Their friendship, forged in fear and fire, lives on, stronger than ever.